Welcome to the Light, Camera, Rant Podcast. Your source for the latest on movies, TV shows, and video games. Get ready for ranting, raving, and reviewing. Here is your host, Lee.
Hi everyone, welcome back for another edition of Lights, Camera, Rant. On this particular episode, we're going to be talking about Stargate. This is one of my all-time favorite TV shows / movies that completely captured my imagination. And to this day, I still love it. And I still go back and rewatch it as much as I can. So this particular franchise, let's start off with obviously the movie that launched it all. So Stargate came out in 1994. It was written by Roland Emmerich. So it's a massive adventure movie. So it's got Kurt Russell in it, and it's got James Spader, and when James Spader had hair, not like the Blacklist, and Kurt Russell has one of the near perfect flat top haircuts for a military person in this movie you'll ever see. It's a mix of like Indiana Jones and like very sci-fi-ish as well. I even made Maddie watch it. I was like, go sit down, I'm gonna watch it. It's a really good story, and I 100% recommend anyone who's into like adventure movies or like fantasy or space to go check it out. So it's about this giant ring they find in Egypt, and which they apparently spend years and years and years and years trying to decipher it, until one day they decide to try to recruit James Spader's character, Daniel Jackson, to help decipher it, because basically he plays the nerd, in which in the first like 10 minutes, 15 minutes of the movie, he says that the pyramids were made by aliens, which to this day, there's people out there still believe it wasn't actually humans, which he all gets ridiculed and becomes a laughing joke. So he gets recruited to the military to try and decipher it, which he does, and it opens a giant wormhole to a completely different civilization, a whole other end of the galaxy. And of course, they go through it, and as the story launches through, it's a really good movie. As in, it's I think with the characters, it's really good. Like the production is fantastic. The set pieces look really good. I can see as much as I do believe in all that, I can kind of see why it didn't get a theatrical release sequel. Because there's only one of these movies. They haven't made a sequel to this movie. It hasn't been rebooted. It hasn't been, from my understanding, I think in early 2013, roughly then, they started talking about, MGM started talking about making another one, but I think they just were like, nah, we're not going to do it. So it's a really good story. It's all that science fiction adventure, like the spectacle. I'd love to go see it at the movies if I could. I think it would look really good. So obviously these guys go through the adventure, they meet the culture, and obviously the aliens, the Goa'uld, however you pronounce it, appear, Ra being the bad guy, trying to take over. And obviously back and forth. It's really cool action set pieces in it. But it's a fun movie, but it's like, I'd recommend it for anyone into science fiction. It's a great movie. And the funny thing is, I actually started watching the TV series Stargate SG-1 before I realised it was a movie. I think I watched a couple of seasons of Stargate, and my mum, who usually watched these shows with me, she was like, there's a movie, and I'm like, what? She's like, yeah, there's a movie. This is based off a movie. I was like, since when? So I was like, oh, all right, well, I'll go watch the movie and see where this all started. And me being like, oh, why is none of the characters look like they do now? Or why they all look different? So I didn't realize the movie when I started watching Stargate. So this, I don't know, it's just like one of those things that just captured my imagination that was so cool. It wasn't Star Trek, it wasn't Star Wars. Star Wars being the massive opera, Star Trek being your classic spoof sci-fi show that looked kind of like outdated. But because Stargate was kind of like, it was very different. Like, one thing I thought was really cool about it was the fact it was based now. Like, it wasn't. Alright, it wasn't, this is a Star Wars in a different part of the galaxy, or this is Star Trek in the future. Like, this was people trying to struggle with going out into space and going out into different worlds, different parts of the galaxy, and they had to struggle with it now with your basic tools or your basic gunware at the time. So Stargate did, from what I understand, it did good at the box office, but obviously not enough to earn that sequel. And it came out to very mixed reviews to the whole thing. So it wasn't overly praised on how it all went. I do understand that the guy that played the bad guy in it, he quit acting after it. I'm probably really not selling this right now at all. However, it still, what it was able to do was the fact that it still had enough hype, it still had enough momentum. The fact that it could, because it still made decent amount of money, and a warm box office reception. It was just after all the critics started getting to it. It was able to launch with all that momentum. It was able to launch Stargate SG-1. Now, this is, like I said, this is one of my premier favorite TV shows that I can keep watching over and over again, which I never get sick of. So Stargate SG-1 began the movie got released in 1904, and they greenlit a TV show that started in 1997, which ran from 1997 to 2007. Smack bang perfect 10 years. 10 years, 10 seasons. There was going to hopefully be an 11th season, but MGM cancelled that before it all went. And before they got that far. So from 1997, and it starred Richard Dean Anderson, MacGyver. The man that could fix anything with a toothpick or anything with a paperclip. Like, it's an absurd show. Like, if you have never seen any episode, go back and watch it. Starring Richard Dean Anderson, and it's just, it's one of those classic shows that you watch and you're like, oh, of course you did. Oh, yep, perfect timing. Very old show now, but it was very popular at the time, and it made Richard Dean Anderson a household name, which he went on to go do this, which he played Kurt Russell's character. He played Jack O'Neill, and then you had Michael Shanks play Daniel Jackson, replacing that character. And it was the first two episodes, or the first episode, Children of the Gods, that did a warm reception, and it just, boom, went from there. And I remember I stumbled across this show just on an episode, and I remember watching it going, that's really cool, or like, they're doing this, and then I was like, all right, I'll watch that again. And I went home, kept watching again. The funny thing is, it used to be, for years, it used to pester me. I watched season after season of the Amazing Race. That's it. That shitty show about the Amazing Race, because The Amazing Race in Australia was on before Stargate. So it was like 8 o'clock, The Amazing Race, 9 o'clock, Stargate SG-1. And it used to pester me because I have to watch it. I'm like, I don't give a shit who wins. I just have to make sure I can get through it. Because obviously back in that time, oh my God, let me say this. There was no streaming services. And you couldn't pause TV. And my God, that makes me feel old now. With all the options we have now. It would have been great back then if we had Netflix or had something so I could just binge watch it, instead of having to watch The Amazing Race. which I do believe is still going, and I just don't understand. Well, actually, no, it's probably not going right now thanks to COVID. But yeah, so I used to watch it episode to episode. The annoying thing was the fact that it kept getting later and later and later. I think the latest it got before eventually came to its end was about I think 11:30 or 10 o'clock. And I remember like trying my hardest to stay awake because it used to be on a Thursday night. I'm like, I've got school tomorrow, but I want to watch it because obviously you can't pause it. We can't record it, anything like that. Obviously, you could still record it, but I didn't have the ability to do it since then. So, yeah, it just captured me. It was like the one show I used to watch absolutely religiously when I was a kid. And that made sure to watch it. Obviously, we're still watching the Batman the Animated Series or watching any of them. It was just really cool to watch and just completely, captured my imagination watching it. And watching it from episode to episode, watching the cast, and obviously going through all the emotions and going, oh my god, I didn't see that coming, or I did see that coming. So you had your four main characters, which was SG-1. There was 10 teams that would go through the Stargate, which eventually over the seasons the teams grew, and sometimes you saw them, sometimes you didn't. So you obviously had Richard Dean Anderson as Jack O'Neill. You had Michael Shanks as Daniel Jackson. You had Amanda Tapping as Samantha Carter. Christopher Judd as Tilk. Now, funny enough, Christopher Judd, who plays Tilk, he actually voices Kratos in the new God of War. Because I remember when I was playing it, I was like, your voice sounds really familiar. Like, why? Where does that come from? So it's the same guy, which is really cool. Good for him. So you had that main team, and obviously over the 10 seasons they go through the Stargate, go to different planets, in this military base, and they meet all these different aliens. The cool thing was the fact that each episode would be a different planet, and each episode you would be getting to different cultures, different characters. And they would draw a lot, over the 10 seasons, they draw a lot from Egyptian mythology, Greek mythology, and they incorporate all the way through, and Norse mythology. And as the seasons got further, you also got into King Arthur. So they use all elements, all of that. So it was really cool seeing that and seeing the different characters. It's funny going back and watching all this, and it's like when you watch the first episode of like Friends, and you're like, wow, everything's so grainy, everything's so like nothing. You watch a new show on Netflix, it's crisp, HD, 4K, and then you go back and watch these shows, and you're like, whew. That's a bit, that's hard to watch. Which, just does the type of the, just the type of the show, obviously, when it came out. So they do all that, and obviously there's the Gaul, there's Anubis, there's the Ori, all these different villains, replicators. So, and you watch it, and the show was made with so much character, a lot of love, a lot of good writing, and it didn't take itself overly too serious. Like there's a lot of funny bits all the way through. I think it's episode 200. They do like a small spoof, and the fact is like they just joke about everything that's happened, and the fact that they're kind of like self-aware. Obviously, there's one episode where they obtain and make their first human spaceship, and Richard Dean Anderson's character is like, oh, why didn't they go with my name? And Amanda Tapping's character is like, well, no, we can't call it the Enterprise. Can't call it the Enterprise. So it's a really good show, and it's kind of sad that it did come to an end when it did. I was gut-wrenched when the last episode rocked up. I thought, shit, that's it. And the funny thing is, a lot of shows don't always get 10 seasons. Like, you should be grateful if you get 10 seasons in a show. But I was like, no, I just want one more. And then they obviously brought out 2 movies after that, based on the show, which was the Arc of Truth and Continuum. There was a plan to make a 3rd movie, but unfortunately that got shelved. And roughly around that point, so 2007, 2009, unfortunately MGM kind of shelved all of it. They shelved, and they went through a whole bankruptcy thing. So they kind of shelved anything that was Stargate related. So in saying that, they also made, from Stargate, they made Stargate Atlantis, which was obviously based in Atlantis, which was really cool. That ran for 5 seasons. That's actually got Jason Momoa in it. He plays an alien. He looks very young in it. And the fact that, he's obviously, since then, he went on to go Game of Thrones, and obviously now he's Aquaman, and now he's going to be in the sci-fi epic Dune, which that trailer came out recently, which just looks great. If you haven't already, go and check that out. Go check out Dune. That's a remake of a very old film, which I did see someone do a side-by-side trailer of the original Dune, and now you're like, whoa, Jesus, that CGI or plastic bag, yeah, you'll know what I mean when I watch it. So yeah, so they made Stargate Atlantis. That was another show that they spawned off it, and then also they spawned off another one, which was Stargate Universe. Unfortunately, Stargate Universe is probably the least praised out of all of them, because they kind of took a different tone with the show, and none of the characters, not too many of the characters from the original other 2 seasons popped over as much compared to Atlantis, and that only ran for 3 seasons, and when that ended, it also left on, obviously, of course, left on a cliffhanger, so you're still wanting that what if, and the most recent thing is the fact they made Stargate Origins, which was a small web series TV show, which was kind of its own entity again, but it wasn't anything major. So nothing. And Universe was the fact that you were on this ship called Destiny, and it was made by these ancients, and it was a whole journey like that. So that was really cool, but yeah, it was nothing. I'll find it, to be honest with you, it wasn't my favorite out of all 3. I thought that's probably the least one I've ever gone back to. But I've always gone back to Stargate Atlantis. That was really good. That was to do a different story with still, I still found it exciting because it was a different aspect. But it was still, amongst all 3 TV shows, it's still very grounded. Nothing's too, it's not in the future. Nothing's too absurd or how would you do that? It's still very grounded, and it's still got the sense of humor all the way through. So they did it, and it's sad because after those 3 shows ended, MGM kind of shelved it all, and you still got the Stargate Origins thing that came out, but it was nothing major. So it's, essentially you have this entire franchise that has laid dormant. Nothing's been oh, that's a big stain, or it just fell apart. It was more the studio. Obviously, ratings do decline over time, but then MGM just decided to shelve it. There was movies being planned, characters were going to come back to do another movie, but now they all put that to bed, sadly. But in recent news, which really sparked me up to talk about this, and I love this entire franchise, which I wanted to I just want you to bring it back. It kind of sucks because they also they had a Stargate game they were going to make, or I think it was 3 quarters, which was going to be really cool. That was going to PlayStation 2. Unfortunately, that kind of fell through and never saw the light of day. You could still go online and you could still see trailers of it. And it would look like it was going to be such a fun game. honestly. And I just feel like, why hasn't anyone picked this up? Like, why hasn't anyone decided to, it's still, the fan base is still there. Fans are still clamoring for it. Like, I don't understand why it's gone such such a dormant thing. Like, why has it been put to rest? Kind of thing. So, but like in video game stands, but apparently the most recent news that I've been hearing is the fact that there's rumors that they're going to, they're looking to make a new TV series, which is why, from my understanding, is why they've decided, why the studio hasn't gone to make another sequel to the movie. They're going to make another TV series, so it'll be a fourth TV series, which I thought, probably at this time, they're probably going to, do a complete reboot, which, obviously a lot of people are doing these days, just flat out reboot, new cast, new everything, go from scratch. But apparently the original writer and original writer called Brad Wright, he's been talking to MGM, he's looking to make a new TV series. Unfortunately, with the COVID pandemic, it's kind of put not on ice, it's just slowed down. But he's been talking to MGM, and the cool thing is that he has said in his podcast that he does is the fact that it's actually going to be a continuation. I think if they make fourth series continuation, include all this mythos that you've built on over 3 shows, and obviously the original movie, and there's so much you can do with it. It's still great science fiction. Like, one of my main things I love is science fiction. Not history. I always have this argument, this back and forth with my old man, and he's like, he's like, why don't you like watching? He loves war films. He loves all that, and he's like, why don't you like watching it? It's like, he's like, I like them. Like, I watch them. Like, I love Saving Private Ryan, all that. But in saying that, it's not saying history should always be reflected on. It's the best way for you how to learn from your mistakes is you look at the past and make sure you do something different. The reason why it doesn't pique my interest, overly interest compared to science fiction, is that history it's something that's been done. You see what happens. You know the outcome. Cool. Nothing else. With science fiction, it's the what if. Your imagination completely flies with science fiction. Anything is possible. What could be happening in the future? What could happen next? Is this going to happen? Are we going to space? What if this happened? You don't know. But with history, you're like, I can go to Wikipedia and I'm like, yep, boom, yep, I know exactly what happened. Yep, we won. We won twice. We won it, and they lost twice. So that's one of my biggest things why I love science fiction, which I love this show. Like, I love Star Wars. I do go back and I watch multiple episodes of Star Trek. Like, I like that as well. My favorite captain will always be Jean-Luc Picard. Jean-Luc Picard. Yeah, sorry. Patrick Stewart. Will always be Picard. He will always be my favorite captain. But nothing as much as like Stargate. Like, I keep watching it over and go, and the funny thing is, Maddie always looks at me like I'm a giant effing nerd, which I'm like, yes, I am. But overall, like, if anyone, overall, I think for someone who loves science fiction, you should go totally watch this. Like, it's nothing, as I said, all the characters are good, they're relatable, just besides the fact that, it's kind of aged. Atlantis and Universe, they're pretty alright, because like Atlantis started in 2004 to 2009, running for 5 seasons, and Stargate Universe, which went from 2009 to 2011, they're kind of pretty up to date. Like, they look pretty crisp compared to Stargate SG-1, obviously, for obvious reasons. But I hope they make that 4th season. I hope they, Richard Dean Anderson's character, Matt Tapping. I hope everyone like wants to chip in somehow or appear or do something. Like it'd be great to see like there's a series like where are they now, or like where's Stargate Command, which they've called, it's the command center where the Stargate is. Like where is it all now? Like the rumored, or actually not rumored, what was meant to be the third movie from them was because Stargate is basically underground. The world doesn't know about it. Their guys have, say the word multiple times. The world doesn't do it because the world's not ready to know of international space travel or how close they've come to destruction each time. And it's actually funny, if you watch all take 10 seasons, there's a lot of pop-ups from different, like, from Star Trek. There's a lot of characters pop up, like Q pops up in a few episodes. So it's really cool to see that kind of crossover. The third Ruben movie was going to be that they were going to struggle in Stargate program coming to light. Like, how would the world react to knowing this? How would the world react knowing the fact that there has been a doorway, a gate, in which has been based in America, obviously, and there's been international, aliens are real, everything is real, and it's been operating for 10 years without no one knowing. Like, I wish they made that movie. It would have been really cool to see where they would have taken that, or like how it would have gone down. But if they incorporate that, it'd be really cool to see. And yeah, so they also did, as well as, I forgot to mention this because I always forget about it, is that they also made a animated TV show that called Stargate Infinity, which went from 2002 to 2003, which I think that, obviously that did the least kind of success out of all of them. But anyone recommend like this? Anyone recommend to go watch all of this? Even if you don't watch all of it, just go watch the original Stargate movie. James Spader and Kurt Russell do a great job in those characters. Seeing a very young Kurt Russell, obviously. And then, you watch James Spader now on The Blacklist. It's a complete contrast. Two different characters. Yeah, it was shot in both America and Canada. So it'd be really cool to see where they'll shoot next, what will be happening. Don't you worry, I will be giving tidbits and review on any news I get on this. It's just all wishful thinking at this stage, because it's a great franchise, it's a great science fiction, and sometimes I feel like it doesn't get as recognition as other TV shows, but it's just as good. All the characters do very well. Everyone played really well, and the fact that different tidbits that you do learn, and like majority of all the science fiction, it was pretty good, pretty accurate and to learn about. But yeah, thank you very much, guys. Thank you for joining me on this reflection, and what I look forward to in Stargate. Thank you for your time, and until next time, guys, please always like, share, subscribe on all my platforms, and as well to go check out my Instagram, which I update daily. Until next time, guys.
Thanks for listening to Lights, Camera, Rant. If you like the show, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. While you're at it, leave us a rating and review, and be sure to tell your friends. Until next time, happy ranting.